On the coast of Northern Ireland, pillars of stone thrust up from the earth in shapes so perfect, they seem impossible. This is the Giant's Causeway. Irish archaeologists finally opened the moving stone door at Giant's Causeway, and what came out left every scientist present either silent, resigned, or refusing to ever speak on record. A drone operator captured a 20-ton basalt slab swinging open from a cliff face that every geological survey for 60 years had confirmed was completely solid rock. It stayed open for 11 seconds. Then it sealed shut so cleanly that not a crack, not a seam, not a mark remained. Earlier today, we're being told tourists and National Trust rangers saw the legendary fin disappear into a magical doorway within the rock face here at the Giant's Causeway. When archaeologists aimed ground-penetrating radar at that section of cliff the next morning, what they found inside stopped the lead researcher cold for nearly 2 full minutes. She didn't write a note. She didn't adjust a setting. She just stood staring at the screen. What the radar detected inside that sealed volcanic rock is the reason a formal research paper was suppressed. Monitoring equipment was quietly removed, and something locked inside that cliff for 60 million years is no longer there. The man who started everything, the man at the center of this story, isn't a scientist. He's Kieran Doyle, a 34-year-old electrician from Dublin. On a Tuesday evening last autumn, Doyle drove north from the city because the weather forecast promised clear skies and a calm sea. He wanted a panoramic clip of the Antrim coast for his Instagram. He'd done this dozens of times. Fly the drone out over the cliffs, capture a few minutes of footage, post the best frame, and drive home. This is one of Northern Ireland's most remarkable and popular sites, a place of science and mythology. People flock each year to see the Giant's Causeway, the Emerald Isle's first World Heritage Site. He wasn't chasing legends. He wasn't looking for anything unusual. But here's the thing. What his drone recorded that evening would become one of the most analyzed pieces of amateur footage in recent memory. The video shows a section of the basalt cliff face moving, not crumbling, not sliding, moving. A slab roughly the size of a transit van, approximately 20 tons of solid volcanic rock, pushing slowly outward like a door on a hinge. Behind it, total darkness. The movement was smooth, deliberate, almost mechanical. Exactly 11 seconds. Then the stone returned to its original position with surgical precision. No crack, no gap, no seam. If you walked past that cliff face 1 minute later, you would never know anything had happened. Doyle almost didn't post the clip. He thought his drone had glitched or the light was playing tricks. He rewatched it 6 times on his phone and each time could see the shadows shifting behind the slab. Video footage was caught on camera, and you've seen from that fantastic footage the door opening here. Something was open back there. He uploaded it that night. By morning, his phone was ringing non-stop. Geologists, journalists, university researchers, all demanding the same answer. Was it real or was it fake? And get this, one of those calls came from Dr. Sarah Brennan, the scientist who couldn't look away. Dr. Sarah Brennan is a senior geologist at Queen's University Belfast, who has studied the Antrim basalt formations for over 15 years. She has published dozens of papers on volcanic rock structures across the North Atlantic. Not someone who chases viral videos. When colleagues forwarded her the clip, she nearly dismissed it outright. Then she watched it a second time, then a third. She called Doyle directly and told him point blank either his footage broke every known rule of geology or it was the most sophisticated hoax she had ever seen. She drove to the site the next day. For anyone unfamiliar, the Giant's Causeway is a stretch of northern Irish coastline made up of roughly 40,000 interlocking hexagonal basalt columns, the result of a volcanic eruption approximately 60 million years ago, when lava at over 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit cooled into eerily perfect geometric pillars. Local legend says a giant named Finn McCool built them as a bridge to Scotland. It's a nice story. What was actually sealed inside them is something else entirely. Here's the catch. In all those centuries of study, All those geological surveys and ground scans, nobody had ever detected a single hollow space inside these cliffs. No ancient text mentioned a hidden chamber. No legend hinted at one. Dr. Brennan herself had scanned sections of that coastline dozens of times over her career and found nothing but solid rock every single time until Kieran Doyle's drone caught it on camera. Whenever you were younger, you were told they were formed by a massive giant who put all these rocks together. But whenever you find out the real story, I think personally that is one of the most exciting parts of Northern Ireland's geology. If you want to follow this story as it develops, because it is still developing, hit subscribe and turn on notifications right now. The evidence that hasn't been made public yet is the part that changes everything. What the radar found, Dr. Brennan arrived at the coordinates from Doyle's footage early the next morning. The weather was gray. The wind was cutting sideways off the Atlantic. She set up her ground-penetrating radar, calibrated the sensors, aimed the antenna at the cliff face and started the scan. What appeared on her screen made her stop moving. Her field assistant later said he thought the equipment had malfunctioned. She simply wasn't reacting. Not writing notes, not adjusting settings, just standing there, eyes locked on the display for nearly 2 full minutes without speaking. Here's what the radar showed, or what the data appeared to show, according to accounts that remain unverified by any independent body. A massive hollow chamber hidden inside what every geologist had always assumed was completely solid basalt, 12 feet deep and 26 feet wide. A room sealed behind volcanic rock with no entrance and no exit that any instrument had ever detected. That alone should have been impossible. But what the scan detected inside that chamber made the chamber feel like a footnote. 7 tall figures standing upright in the dark, each one between 7 and 8 feet in height, positioned in a precise formation, spaced exactly 4 and 1/2 feet apart, every single one facing the stone door. Not randomly scattered, not collapsed, standing in rows facing the way out. Now here's the deal. Basalt doesn't form around standing objects. It's cooled lava, not sedimentary rock that builds up over time. The only way those figures could be inside that rock is if they were already in position when the lava was still liquid, still burning at over 2,000 degrees, sealed in there since the eruption that created the Giant's Causeway. 60 million years ago. This phenomena created the Giant's Causeway 60 million years ago. It's a process that is still occurring. In Iceland, the same processes that created the Giant's Causeway are unfolding today. Humans wouldn't exist.
For another 59 million years. Whatever those 7 things are, they were standing in formation before anything resembling a person ever walked this planet. The next morning, a geophysicist named Dr. Ian Gallagher arrived from Belfast with more advanced scanning equipment. Gallagher specializes in subsurface imaging, reading what's buried beneath rock, soil, ocean floor. He has mapped underground river systems across Northern Europe and worked on deep crust surveys for the Irish government. Methodical, professional, calm. The calm of someone who has looked at underground images for decades and never been surprised. 20 minutes later, his hands were shaking so badly he had to set his tablet down on a rock and step away. He walked in a small circle for a minute, rubbing the back of his neck before he came back and looked at the screen again. But here's what nobody expected. The higher resolution scan revealed that the 7 figures weren't solid stone. They were hollow shells, thin outer casings with empty interiors, like cocoons, like pods. It looked like something had once been alive inside each one, or maybe still was. The shell material defied identification. Whatever it was made of shouldn't have survived contact with molten lava. Nothing organic withstands those temperatures. Nothing synthetic should either. Not for that duration, not under that pressure. Yet there they were, intact and structurally sound, sealed inside rock that had been liquid fire when the dinosaurs were still dying out. The cover-up. Within 48 hours, government agencies were quietly notified. Encrypted emails, closed-door briefings. The site Dr. Brennan had studied her entire career was about to be taken away from her. An environmental agency team arrived and issued a statement almost immediately. The drone footage was a trick of light reflecting off wet basalt. No chamber existed, no anomalies detected. The area was perfectly normal, but here's the thing, their own lead consultant, Dr. Brennan herself, refused to sign that report. She read the draft statement twice, then pushed it back across the table without picking up a pen. The room went quiet. Nobody argued. Nobody pushed the paper back. She stood up, gathered her notes, and left. Colleagues on site say she returned to her laptop one final time, pulled up the raw sonar data, stared at it before closing the screen, and went completely white. The following week, she submitted a 4-sentence resignation letter. The last sentence read, "I have seen enough." 3 words. Her entire scientific conclusion after 15 years studying that coastline. No explanation, just, "I have seen enough." And get this, the agency moved fast after. That, heavy steel barriers and bright yellow warning signs went up around the entire section of cliff. Official reason, coastal erosion, falling rock hazard. Simple, boring. But everyone who had seen those scans knew exactly why that section of cliff was suddenly off limits. What happened next confirmed it. Before the team was formally ordered to leave, Dr. Brennan returned to the site one more time. 4 days after the original scan, run a comparative scan, confirm the data, document any. She expected everything to look identical. She was hoping it would. She wanted to believe the first scan had been a glitch, something that would dissolve under a second look. When the new image loaded on her screen, she grabbed the edge of the equipment case to steady herself. One of the figures was gone. Only 6 remained. The stone door had not opened, not once. Kieran Doyle had mounted a motion-activated camera aimed directly at the rock face the day after his original recording. It ran 24 hours a day for all 4 days. 0 movement on the exterior, not a tremor, not a vibration. The door stayed sealed the entire time. Yet inside that locked chamber, what researchers at the site described as a 7-foot-tall figure had simply vanished. No dust, no debris, no crack, no tunnel, no trace. As if it had walked straight through solid rock and disappeared. And get this, the remaining 6 didn't react. They didn't scatter. They didn't shift into a different pattern or move away from the spot where the 7th had been standing. They just kept standing there in the darkness, facing the door. As if the 7th leaving was expected. As if it was simply the first one to go. They're warm and they have heartbeats. Dr. Niamh Callahan, a thermal imaging specialist from University College Dublin, was brought in to check for volcanic heat sources or underground water. She had done this kind of survey dozens of times on geothermal sites across Iceland and the Azores. She expected to find a hot spring, a magma pocket, maybe a buried water channel. Something boring, something explainable. It was a freezing March morning, air temperature 39 degrees Fahrenheit. The cliff face rock equally cold. Standard Irish coast conditions. Then she aimed her thermal camera at the chamber location. The screen flooded orange and red. Here's the deal. Inside the sealed room, what the thermal data appeared to show was the 6 remaining figures radiating heat at 99 degrees Fahrenheit. That is not close to human body temperature. That is human body temperature. The exact internal core reading of a healthy living person. There is no mechanism in geology or thermodynamics that explains how anything stays that warm inside cold stone for even a century, let alone millions of years. Heat dissipates, always. It radiates outward and fades. That's a fundamental law of physics, not a theory. Sealed inside freezing basalt, surrounded by Atlantic Ocean air, anything warm should have reached equilibrium with the surrounding rock in days, not millions of years. Days. Callahan recalibrated her equipment, swapped the batteries, repositioned the camera, and ran the scan from 3 different angles, every time 99 degrees, steady, unmistakable. She borrowed a second thermal unit from Gallagher's kit. Same result. She returned to her colleagues and asked, dead serious, if they were playing a prank. When she saw their faces, pale, tight-lipped, nobody laughing, she realized they weren't. She packed her gear into her car without another word and didn't respond to a single email or phone call for 3 weeks. When she finally did reply, it was one line. "I need more time to process what I saw." But here's what nobody expected. The team had also installed vibration sensors along the rock face. What those sensors picked up is the most disturbing detail in this entire story. A rhythmic pulse repeating every 4 seconds. Consistent, steady, never varying. One senior researcher, choosing his words carefully, admitted on record that the pattern was indistinguishable from a slow heartbeat. The thermal readings weren't stable either. They'd spike above 100 degrees with no external trigger, then settle back down to 99. The fluctuations didn't match tides, weather, or any known geological cycle. The team ran correlations against barometric pressure, lunar phases, and seismic activity across the North Atlantic. Nothing matched. The heat was behaving autonomously, as if whatever was generating it was responding to something internal, not external. Something alive. They are moving toward the door. Every 72 hours, the team ran a fresh scan. Every time, the situation got worse. The 6 remaining figures were changing positions. Not dramatically, a few inches at a time, barely perceptible between individual scans, but consistently and directionally, always the same direction. They were no longer in that precise military formation. They had clustered together and were shifting steadily toward the sealed stone door. Slowly, deliberately, like something waking from a very long sleep and deciding it was time to leave. The researchers overlaid the positional data from every 72-hour scan onto a single composite image. When they saw the trajectory, 6 data points on a clear, unbroken path toward the exit, nobody in the room said anything for a long time. Think about what that means. These things have been locked inside volcanic rock since before mammals existed. They've outlived every species, every civilization, every empire that ever rose and fell above them. For tens of millions of years, they didn't move. Patient, still, waiting. And now, right now, in our lifetime, they're heading for the door. And get this, over 1 million tourists visit the Giant's Causeway every year. Families walk across those black stones with their children, take selfies, listen to guides, talk about Finn McCool. No idea that just 39 feet behind the rock, 6 entities are radiating body heat into the cold stone and inching toward a door that has already opened once, the attempt to go public. Dr. Brennan, despite her resignation, attempted to go public. She spent months compiling the thermal data, heartbeat patterns, positional shifts, and shell composition analysis. She wrote a formal paper, had it peer-reviewed by 2 trusted colleagues who confirmed her methodology was sound, and submitted it to Ireland's Geological Review Board. The board rejected it. Faulty equipment, flawed methodology, insufficient evidence. Case closed. Here's the catch. A colleague on that board contacted her privately afterward. Off the record, burner phone. He told her the real reason had nothing to do with her science. If the public learned that biological heat signatures and rhythmic pulses had been detected inside ancient basalt, it would crack the foundation of everything we think we know about the history of life on Earth. Every textbook rewritten, every timeline shattered, every assumption about when intelligence first appeared on this planet thrown out the window. In April, all monitoring equipment was quietly removed from the site. The researchers were told plainly, "Stay silent or your careers are finished. No publication, no interviews, no social media, nothing." But they couldn't destroy all of it. The evidence that survived. Kieran Doyle still has his original drone footage on 3 separate hard drives in different locations across Dublin. He checks them weekly to make sure files haven't been corrupted or remotely wiped. He told a close friend he sleeps differently now, lighter, more alert. Like something shifted the night he watched that stone move and never shifted back. The researchers who worked the site, Brennan, Gallagher, Callahan, and at least 2 others, kept personal copies of everything. Sonar data, thermal logs, vibration recordings, positional scans, time-stamped photographs of every equipment readout, all on encrypted drives where no agency can reach without a warrant. The last scan before the equipment was pulled showed the 6 figures still moving, still pulsing, still warm. The one closest to the door was only a few feet from the stone entrance, its rhythmic heartbeat measurably stronger than the week before, getting louder, getting faster, as if it could sense how close it was to the way out. But the question keeping every one of these researchers awake at night isn't about the 6 still inside. It's about the one that already left. When they first scanned that chamber, there were 7 figures. Now, there are 6. One is gone. It didn't break through the stone, didn't open the door, didn't leave a tunnel, a crack, a scratch, or a single grain of displaced dust. It simply wasn't there anymore. So, where is it now? Somewhere beneath the Atlantic, drifting through cave systems under the Irish seabed, hidden in an unexplored cavern along the coast, buried inside another cliff face nobody has thought to scan, or somewhere else entirely. Beneath a city, inside a mountain, moving through spaces we've never thought to look. The remaining 6 didn't flinch when the 7th disappeared. They didn't scatter or rearrange, just kept moving toward the door, patiently, steadily, as if the departure was expected, as if it was simply the first one to leave, as if they're all waiting their turn. We've spent our entire existence believing we were the first intelligent things to walk this planet. These figures say otherwise. Something was here long before us, sealed in stone, radiating warmth, pulsing with a rhythm that sounds exactly like a heartbeat, waiting inside that rock while every civilization we've ever built rose and fell on the surface above it. Doctor, Brennan said something recently, off the record, to one of the few people she still trusts. We treat ancient history like something dead, something we dig up and put behind glass. But what if it isn't dead? What if it's just been sleeping? And what if it's finally waking up? Right now, 6 figures stand facing a stone door inside the cliffs at the Giant's Causeway. Their heartbeats are getting stronger, their heat signatures are climbing, they're inches from the exit. And the 7th is already out there, moving through a world that doesn't know it exists. Do you think those 6 figures are still behind that door? Or have more already gotten out? Tell me what you think in the comments. And if you want to know the moment new evidence surfaces on this story, hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because this one is far from over.